Back with you on Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, reminding you, please head over to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta. Check us out there. Check out all the different shows that we've got going on. Give us a review. Give us a like. Tell us some of your comments about what's going on with us. Follow me on Twitter at JMCH316. Well, tonight, Hawks and Cavs get added. Game 2 of this play-in tournament, if you will, to get ready for whoever's going to take on the Miami Heat coming up on Easter Sunday. And look, coming off such a dominating performance by the Atlanta Hawks where they blew out the Charlotte Hornets the other night, now they go on the road to take on the Cavaliers. Now, this season, the Hawks were 3-1 against the Cavaliers. And one of the things I thought was interesting was the fact that in all 3 victories for the Atlanta Hawks, they scored more than 120 points against the Cavs. The one loss that they had was in Cleveland, and that was literally the second game of the year. So that seems like it's, 2 years ago at this point, right? The second game of the season. So they really handled the Cleveland Cavaliers the rest of the way, and offensively, they really took it to Cleveland. Now, Allen is expected to sort of be back for Cleveland. They're saying it's 50-50 that he comes back or this, that, and the other. I don't really know. I mean, I don't know him coming back, how much of a difference that really makes for the Cavaliers because they're just not sure how, healthy his finger is. We expect John Collins to not be back. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. I have not seen if Lou Williams is expected to be back, but let's say that they're without, those two guys. Look, I feel very confident tonight in what the Atlanta Hawks can do. And really more than anything, if they can maintain that defensive intensity that they had against Charlotte, and say what you will, but I mean, without Allen, the Cavs are a little bit of a different team, and they've got a lot of bodies that they can throw at you, but I just don't know that the Cavaliers right now, when they're in sort of a funk right now, you look, they were 3-7 in their last 10 regular season games. Obviously, they lost on the road to Brooklyn. That's why they're in this position, right now. Hawks are feeling very confident about themselves as we get ready for this game tonight. I just think all signs point toward Atlanta. I did think it was interesting. The Cavs are a 2-point favorite tonight. So if you like betting and all that sort of thing out there, I think the Hawks are going to win straight up. And you can call me a homer or whatever like that. That's fine. I don't care. I mean, you can use all of that. But right now, the Hawks are playing much, much better than what the Cleveland Cavaliers are. And I don't think Allen coming back is going to have enough of an impact to change this thing around. But if you look at the series this year with the Cavs and the Hawks offense was always clicking. When they were winning against the Cavs, they were scoring plenty of points. And so 120 points or more in each of the 3 wins that they had. One of those was in Cleveland, by the way. So they were 2-0 against the Cavs on their home floor at the State Farm Arena. But they did win the other matchup that they played up in Cleveland. So they lost game 2 of the season, literally the second game of the season they lost. But a lot of things have changed, since that point. So I'm just looking for that intensity on defense. That the Hawks were magnificent defensively when you think about what they did to Charlotte, who really had scored. I think they had scored over, I want to say like 115 points a game against the Hawks in their couple of victories with them. But Hawks were magnificent on defense. And 2 things I'm looking for. One is tonight, Trae's got to get off early. They have to get off early. One of the things that happened the other night with the Cleveland Cavaliers game and the Brooklyn Nets game was as Cleveland tried to get themselves back in, and they got themselves down, and they were trying to get themselves back in. And at one point, they were 15, 16 points down in that game. But as they tried to get back, Irving would come up and hit some big shots, and he would be a guy that would just throw that dagger into Cleveland. I need Trae to be that tonight. I need a much better performance than 1 for 9 in the first half like Trae had the other night. You could probably get away with that against Charlotte. Probably going to be a little bit harder on the road to get away with that with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, don't know enough to tell you about. I know in the old days about the Cavaliers and their home court advantage, but wouldn't say that that's one of the most raucous places that you have to worry about. It should be a good crowd. I mean, there's a lot of excitement about the Cavs up there. There's a lot of people that are excited about the idea of the Cavs being back in the playoffs and everything like that. I just think the way that the Hawks are playing right now, and if they can replicate that defensive intensity, which that's been the question all year, is that we've waited for those kinds of moments where they got good ball movement, they've had defensive intensity, and everything just kind of came together. Now, if you can mix in Trae Young shooting well, now this really makes this a dangerous team. And I just think the Cavs are in for a tough time tonight. They've been on the skids of late, and I fully expect that the Hawks will go up there and beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then they get themselves ready for, you literally have to turn around on Sunday, on Easter Sunday, and play the Miami Heat. And when you heard some of the comments from the Hawks after the game, from Trae Young talking about this had an NCAA tournament feel, that it was like, he was saying that this was his second or third one and done elimination game going back to his days at Oklahoma. You just kind of get the sense in hearing from the Hawks that they know now is the time to turn this thing on. And from an experience standpoint, I don't think there's any question about the fact that the Hawks obviously have a huge edge in the experience factor. I've said all year long, I think the Cavs have played really well, and I think they've overachieved. Remember, they've won 22 more games. They've literally doubled their win total from year over year. That doesn't happen very often in the NBA, where you double your win total in one season like that. But the Cavs have had a magnificent season. But they're in a position where they're not ready to win these kinds of games just yet. Could they? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a one and done scenario in the NBA. Anything can happen. And if the Hawks, lose their focus defensively, or they have bad shooting nights all the way around, yeah, they could very much, have a night where the Hawks just, take it on the chin and the Cavaliers move on. But if you can get that three-point shooting the way that they had it going on early, where they were 5 for 9 in the first quarter, and that's without Trae Young doing anything, and then they were 50%. I think they were 50%, from the field, from three-point line in the first half of that game. They can replicate that, and they can get their perimeter game going. That sort of negates what some of the bigs for the Cavaliers want to do. And it's going to be another night where you're going to have to get Clint Capella, both get him involved offensively, because that seems to turn him on defensively and rebounding and things like that. And he's not going to have as much help if they do get Allen back and they've got some of their bigs and Love and everybody. You're going to need to give Capella some help. You're going to have to get Hunter to be not just efficient on defense, but you're going to have to help out with the rebounding as well. And that was a big advantage for the Hawks the other night against Charlotte, was how well that they out-rebounded the Hornets out of it. So I do think that the Cavaliers are just in a position where they're not used to being here. And I know Love has been a championship player for them. Obviously, when LeBron and Irving and those guys were there, he was part of that championship team. But this just doesn't feel like it's the time for the Cleveland Cavaliers to figure out a way to win this game. And I think the Hawks experience, and again, if they can keep that defensive intensity up, and Nate McMillan talked about that. We heard from Nate McMillan. He was on one of our radio shows on the station, and just talking about the defensive intensity that they were able to maintain throughout that game. That's going to be the key moving forward for the Hawks. Is it can't be, I guess in a 7-game series, you can have a night where you don't have the defensive intensity, but more often than not, you're going to have to keep that focus. You're going to have to keep that grind going. Let's see if the Hawks have them in it. So I take the Hawks tonight. I think they cover that 2-point spread. I think they win the game outright. And I think you see Trae Young have a real bounce back game, because he knew he did not play well the other night. And that's bad news if you're a Cleveland Cavaliers player out of all of it. All right, when we get back, I'm glad to see that Nick Saban is being generous with everybody's money. Glad to see he wants for equality for everybody around the world of college football. We'll talk about that next. Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery on Locked On Sports Atlanta.